DreamWorks is by far my favorite animated movie studio, or maybe just movie studio in general. They've time and time again proved themselves by making fantastic movies that stand the test of time and become classics. Except when they don't. That's why today, we're going to be, well actually just me, I'm going to be ranking the first 15 DreamWorks movies, which could be considered their classic era. I'm doing it this way, so that my DreamWorks rankings fit more in line with my Disney rankings, and so this video isn't too long. Without any further ado, in last and definitely least place...
According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way that a bee should—
Shut up! For the last few weeks, the Bee Movie has been haunting my dreams. I almost gave it its own video because it's that garbage! But it isn't even worth that. The Bee Movie is genuinely one of the most pointless movies I've ever seen. And after watching it, I felt nothing. Now, I can't say that about Hoodwinked. And it's not even called The Bee Movie. It's just Bee Movie. So what's the movie about? Bees. The movie follows our protagonist, Barry B. Benson, Mr. Jerry Seinfeld, wanting to leave the hive. And to do so, he must become a pollen jockey. But he can't be a Chad bee, because he's just a little loser bee, in his little loser bee life, and that's all he'll ever be. Until he discovers interspecies relationships. Yeah, that's right. We've gone as long as we can without talking about it. Vanessa falls in love with a bee. Okay, moving on. Not. She falls in love with a bee. First of all, what the heck? Second of all, not only does she fall in love with a bee, but she leaves her boyfriend to do so. And to top it off, he's allergic to bees. Let that sink in. Come right in, Mr. Sink. Great to see you. This movie might just be the worst DreamWorks movie. Notice how I said might. Boss Baby Family Business could be worse, but I'm too scared to find out.
And now you work for me, boomers!
Some people might like the Bee Movie, and to that I say, nah, I'm joking. It's okay if you like the Bee Movie. Just know that you're wrong. Now, why do I hate the Bee Movie? It's boring, creepy, the characters and plot both suck, and I hate puns, especially bee puns. This movie was torture. And there is no way anyone in the comments can convince me that Barry B. Benson is a good protagonist. I dare you. The movie also tries to demonize beekeeping, but beekeeping is a good thing. I think. I'm not going to do any research on that. Who am I, a florist? The only florist I know is in love with a bee. I've heard that it wasn't the intention of the movie to come across like there was romantic interest, but it's still weird. This is not a good movie, but since it's just a silly movie, I would say that's okay. But no, Bee Movie, be better. This movie is terrible, and it might just be, bad choice of words, one of, if not, the worst DreamWorks movie. Oh my god, I think I just swallowed a bee! Right away, I knew Antz was gonna be edgy. It's spelled with a Z instead of an S after all. But I don't think anyone would have been able to guess just how weird and quite frankly, kind of inappropriate this movie is. There's this one ant that gets beheaded, and Z, the name of the main ant, holds his head as he dies. It's also very Shrek-strual, which I found odd, to say the least. But even that couldn't save this movie from poor dialogue, and being pretty darn boring. As DreamWorks' first movie, they missed the mark, but I think it's a good thing they were already working on Prince of Egypt to recover from this, reputation-wise. At least, I would say that. But surprisingly, it didn't do all that bad, commercially or critically, which I find very weird. If this movie was released today, I can guarantee critics would hate it. But let me know if we got any Antz lovers in the comments. I wouldn't even say that I hate this movie, it just doesn't really appeal to me. I do not like Chicken Run. Nothing really happens, and it's kinda just boring. It was my least favorite out of the Aardman DreamWorks movies. Like, I don't hate it, I just don't care. Sorry my Chicken Runner lovers, but Chicken Little's better, and so is McDonald's. I feel bad about saying this, but Wallace and Gromit and The Curse of the Were-Bunny is just alright. The extent of the humor is mainly puns, and you know how I feel about those. There's also this weird romance plot between Walter and Toddy, and well, nobody cares. However, I did like the use of stop motion. People often like to claim that Shark Tale is horrible, but I propose a different idea. It isn't worthy of being terrible. It's just very mediocre. To be fair, I did laugh a couple of times throughout the movie, and I did like Jack Black's Kenny, but other than that, it's just okay. And that there's mobster sharks? Mobster sharks? I take it all back. Shark Tale sounds awesome. Oscar the Fish, voiced by Will Smith, works at a whale wash station? Was this movie written by AI? Still better than Finding Nemo, though. Over the Hedge is a decent animated movie. It's definitely not bad, but it is forgettable. The way the Verminator is described online would make you think he's the most goofiest goober since Mr. Goof himself. He's much more of a downgrade Big Al, and he's barely in the movie. If I had to choose between whether I liked it or disliked it, I definitely liked it, but I won't be revisiting this one. I'm now remembering that this movie has a strong cult following, so in that case, this is the best movie of all time. Please don't dislike the video. I bet you were expecting this to be a lot higher. It's consistently talked about as one of the best animated movies, but I didn't really like it. The first half was pretty good, but the second half was just boring. It's definitely not a bad movie. The animation is beautiful, and I would even say it's a good movie. I think the problem is I prefer comedic movies, and it's not like they could redo the source material all too much. You know, being the Bible and all. But if you do like this movie, I definitely understand why. I think it's a great example of the artistry that goes into creating an animated movie opposed to a live action one. Not that live action movies are inferior in any way, but I think there's something special that you get from an animated movie that you can't replicate in live action. Shrek the Third has always been the black sheep of the Shrek franchise, but it's not nearly as bad as some might say. It's a good movie, just not nearly as good as the previous two. Shrek 2 is a huge step up from Shrek 1, but this feels more like a direct-to-video sequel to Shrek 2, even reusing the same villain, Prince Charming. But I actually do really like Prince Charming as a villain. Even if it is more of the same, it's still more Shrek, so it's still a good time. I also liked all the Disney princess parodies too, especially after watching all the Disney movies earlier this year. This is also the movie that introduces Shrek's babies, Fergus, Farkle, and Felicia. Their actual name is Fergus. You know this child is gonna get bullied. And I'm now realizing that I think Shrek 3 is better than Prince of Egypt. Is it too late to say I'm sorry? Flushed Away is a very solid movie. Kinda weird how it has an obsession with underwear and testicular pain, but it's still a good movie. I like the villain, I like the henchman, I like everything about the movie. It's a solid time and worth watching. Shrek is a classic. It perfectly satires the previous 80 years of animation with all the clash of modern music and old fairy tales. It's also the perfect movie for demonstrating the reason DreamWorks was originally created, being basically a diss track on Disney. Outside of that, it's still wonderful, charming, and comedic film, with the bonus of reminding the audience of a classic moral. Be green, be mean. Also, on this watch, I noticed at the beginning of the movie, when Lord Farquaad's troops are capturing fairy tale creatures, Geppetto is the one that turns in Pinocchio, his own son! And I thought Chicken Little's father was bad. I have no idea why Sinbad is so clowned on. Like, it's not bad. I genuinely want to know why people dislike Sinbad and what their thought process is. I can, however, take a look at someone who left a positive review on Sinbad. Sinbad can get it. Everyone on the ship...
What the fuck?
The first thing I thought of while watching Sinbad was, God damn, this movie is dated, looking like a Bionicle movie. The second thing I thought was just how much I miss 2D animation in mainstream movies. It's a shame that DreamWorks stopped making 2D animated movies after Sinbad, but at the same time, it makes sense, as their 3D animated movies made way more money. I would even go as far to say that Sinbad isn't just a good movie, it's a really good movie. And even if the CGI parts didn't age the best, I think it's cool how it's a time capsule of the era it was created in. Sinbad was originally going to be a movie made by Disney before DreamWorks was founded. And if you want to hear more about canceled Disney movies, you can check out this video I made. Madagascar is not the best movie in the world, but it is essentially the perfect one. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone who hates this movie. And how could you? These animals are so funny they make me want to merge without looking. It's such a consistently funny movie, and I think this is helped by every character on the cast being a delight. Except you, Mort. You freak! I don't even think most people realize how much of a monster Mort is. It might seem like he's just a little goofy and he likes feet. Blech. But if you watch the All Hail King Julian show, you would know he is evil. He has done unspeakable things in this show, like murder and genocide. In addition, there is an entire multiversal war of Morts, and I wish I was making this up, but the show is that stupid. And I will have to talk about it in length on the channel in the future. But as far as Madagascar goes, ignoring the unknown crimes of Mort, this is a great movie for all ages and it never fails to entertain. Watching Shrek 1, I thought it was pretty good, but watching Shrek 2, I get it now. Shrek 2 is a perfect, and I mean perfect, sequel. The fairy godmother and Prince Charming are both fantastic additions to the cast. The side characters from the first movie have more of a role, and it has Puss in Boots, the #1 best Shrek character. It's just an overall more funny and enjoyable movie than the first. Shrek 2 was the first ever sequel DreamWorks made. And since then, DreamWorks has time and time again solidified the reputation of making fantastic sequels, unlike Somebody. Not only do they make sure that the movie can stand on its own, but they even try to make it better. And we yet again learn another very important moral from Shrek, and it's not be yourself, it's be an ogre! El Dorado is a seriously criminally underrated movie. It's one of the best DreamWorks movies and is hardly talked about. Since most of you probably haven't seen this movie, I'm gonna tell you the general plot and try to convince you to watch it. Don't worry, I won't spoil that Grimace dies. Tulio and Miguel steal a map to El Dorado and stow away on the ship. When they arrive at El Dorado, they are mistaken as gods, as they match the depiction on the rock. So they gaslight all the indigenous people of El Dorado to steal their gold. Look, I know that makes them sound like they're terrible people, but you just need to watch the movie. Please? Also, for those who have seen it and know what I'm talking about, I think the villain had an opportunity to have his own song. But regardless, it's just an awesome movie that I'll need to find an excuse to talk about again someday. There was no question that Spirit was going to be my number one. In previous videos, I've mentioned Looney Tunes Back in Action is my favorite movie, but this is a close second. And I wholeheartedly believe this to be the best movie I have ever seen. Picking your favorite movie is one thing, but what about the best movie you've ever seen? I love this movie so much! Like, why does the soundtrack need to go this hard? I know some people might not like the Bryan Adams songs, but for me, these are always consistently in my playlist, and I do not care if that is cringe because it's true. I will acknowledge some people's criticism of the pointless Matt Damon voiceover, but I love this movie too much to care. I said acknowledge, not agree. I'm very heavily biased, but this whole list is biased too. But yes, at times it can be a little goofy. This movie is so visually stunning and so full of emotion. Literally, how is the movie about a horse?
Peter, the horse is here.
The only movie I felt myself getting emotional about. When Rain gets shot, the movie makes sure you feel the emotional impact this has on Spirit and Little Creek. You feel the connection and friendship grow between Spirit and Little Creek, which makes it even more harder to watch when they have to say goodbye. And I absolutely love how even if Matt Damon occasionally does the inner monologue of Spirit, they never let the horse actually speak. And it's just amazing how much this movie can say without ever speaking. The scene where Spirit and Little Creek first meet and escape captivity remains one of my favorite scenes of all time. But the absolute craziest moment is when they jump the giant gap in between the mountains and the Colonel nods in respect and lets them leave. This is seriously a fantastic movie that I highly recommend. From a studio that has brought us so many great movies, this is what I believe to be their crowning achievement. And that's why the Minecraft Ender Dragon